Welcome everybody to PinstripeChronicles podcast. I'm Tats. We're here with Rob and Donald, and joining us today is Scott from Before the Pitch. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm especially wonderful that I get to enjoy some time with you fine gentlemen. And we just had Thanksgiving, so I'm thankful for being able to meet any of you guys. I'm thankful that you guys are having me on the show every once in a while. And I'm thankful for the wonderful people who I've met through Yankees Twitter and through the show. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, bro.
There was one talking point I want to start off with that we were talking about. We avoided yesterday, and that's the thought process and talking point of, is the Yankees luster for free agency gone? And what I mean is, it used to be that any agent that had a free agent on the market would always check in with the Yankees, and it seems over the last few years that aura of being a Yankee is kind of starting to diminish to public perception. What happens behind the scenes, we don't know that. And is the Yankee luster gone? Is that love for wanting to be a Yankee starting to disappear, where free agents are not really coming through the Bronx? They used to stop for something to eat. They're not even driving through the Bronx anymore. They just go right to the next team. And I want to know what your guys' takes on that is.
I guess I'll start it off. I don't think it's gone. I think the Yankees themselves, the way they've been doing business, has deterred players away. I mean, Manny Machado wanted to be a Yankee. That was reported numerous times. We were still able to get Garrett Cole here. We got DJ LeMahieu to come back for less than probably he would have gotten from other teams. It's been reported that Rizzo really wants to be back here. However, the Yankees have not really been their old selves in terms of spending. So the players that might say, oh, well, the Yankees might give me all this money because they don't care about spending money. That's what it used to be. Like Beltran back in 05. I know Donald brought this up yesterday. His agent went to the Yankees, said, he will sign with you guys. And the Yankees said, no, we're good at center field. They still had Bernie Williams at the time. But I just think that players, they still might want to be Yankees, but now they're seeing that there's more teams that are willing to spend money, especially this year. We just saw Texas give out 2 huge contracts, and they're not even remotely ready to compete yet, in my opinion. So
even Detroit late yesterday.
Yeah. So it's a different landscape in baseball. There are still teams that aren't spending at all, like Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I mean, Max Scherzer and Garrett Cole are making more than their entire team. But I think at the end of the day, it's the Yankees have changed their way a little bit in terms of how they spend the money, and players are just like, all right, well, I can get the money from other teams. The Mets are willing to spend. Let me go check in with them.
Yeah. No, it's.
What do you think, bro?
Yeah, so I do like a lot of stuff you said. I really do. It's not that being a Yankee is like it's the goal. Like for everyone to say, "Oh no, I was a Yankee," be like, "No, I wore a Yankee uniform." I think that still means something. And I think we know that because a lot of people who come here, they all like to stay here. If you ever noticed that. Like, there's a reason why DJ LeMahieu want to stay here. There's a reason why Anthony Rizzo keeps saying he wants us to stay here, because it means something to be here. I think what caused the change is, and I think it's a combination of things. And I don't like to boil it down to, oh, well, George is dead and Hal just took over and Hal's not George. Well, yes, we know that, but we also can understand that the economic landscape that George was playing in is a different economic landscape than what Hal is playing in. So you can understand there has to be a difference somewhere. What is that difference? I don't know exactly. And that's why my job is here and not working for the Yankees. But here's what, at least to me, if I can put myself in the position of the front office. We've had the second highest payroll, if not the highest payroll, for the better half of the last 10 years. I think we've always been a top 3 payroll. Last year we were top 2. And we're consistently getting our butts whipped by the Tampa Bay Rays with a salary of a third of us. So what I think that does is that causes you to say, what's the problem? And I think that makes them hesitant about what their plan is. And I think that's what the change is. So you can literally boil this down to Tampa Bay just did it. And remember Houston, when they were winning, they had a very, very low payroll when they were winning, trash can stuff aside. So I think it's a combination of seeing all the lower the lower payroll teams start to kick your butts every once in a while. It makes you say, well, is there something different to the strategy that we are missing? And I think I don't think agents aren't checking with the Yankees. I think they are, and the Yankees just aren't responding because the Yankees have learned a new level of discipline where they feel comfortable and they are not budging. And you also have to remember, it's like, well, we did budge on Garrett Cole because Garrett Cole, the defining factor for him was going that extra year. And we gave Garrett Cole a lot of money and a lot of years. So clearly they have their own grasp on what overpay is worth it and what's not. And I think their concept of that is different than the fan concept of that. And a lot of that has to do with we don't hear a lot from them. When you really think about it, we don't hear a lot from Brian Cashman. He's not an outspoken person as far as letting information out. He says a lot, he speaks a lot, but doesn't say anything. And I think there's the frustration of the unknown is why I think sets everyone off so much.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. You know, it's not that maybe it's not that the free agents aren't, you know, the agents aren't checking in with the Yankees. Like you said, the Yankees aren't responding. They're trying to adapt. They're trying to adapt this new philosophy of, you know, being more money conscious, you know, but at the same time, what they're neglecting to do is address issues that need to be addressed on the field. And they've kind of gotten away from bringing in players. Yeah, like we always said, it's not that we want them to spend big every offseason or make the big free, you know, trade deadline splash, but address your needs properly. You know, if you get somebody for it just came over that, you know, falafel might be available, you know, to come over. If that addresses a significant need and improves I know that's not how I say his name.
Iker Falafi.
I can't help it. That's just how I say his name.
Falefa.
Yeah.
You know, if that improves, you know, a need on the team, that's fine. I could accept that. You know, but it seems like the Yankees' silence while everything else is going on does get frustrating as a fan.
Well, this frustration stems from the fact that I'm not entirely sure what their plan is this offseason.
Yeah.
Because the narratives have been changing. You know, Cashman came out his press conference and said that by resetting the luxury tax threshold, he's now got some maneuverability in the market. He said that, and since he said that, you know, at first the beat writers and the insiders were saying, "Oh well, you know, Corey Seager is almost a certainty to be a Yankee. The Yankees are checking in on all the top of the market guys." But since then, the Yankees have done the exact opposite. They are actually checking in on the B and the C, and they're just kind of waiting in the weeds. And as Scott says, they're incredibly disciplined, but I'm not entirely sure what they're disciplined for, because a lot of the things just don't make a lot of sense, what they're being disciplined at. For instance, Verlander, as I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, over $25 million over 2 years for Justin Verlander, coming off Tommy John surgery at 38 years old. Robbie Ray has one of the best strikeouts per walks ratio ever, and he just won a Cy Young Award, and he just signed for $23 million over 5. So it's all about the years. Now, Rob was pointed that out yesterday. The Yankees are obsessed with the years. They don't want to take on major years. But I'm sorry, but that just doesn't make a lot of sense. You could still, if you could offering 25 for Verlander coming off Tommy John, you could offer 23 for Robbie Ray, because obviously you're wanting a starting pitcher. So you can't tell me that Verlander is that much of a better arm than Robbie Ray, because Robbie Ray's younger and you know, just want to Cy Young. So he, for signing for a less annual salary, just means that the Yankees narratives aren't adding up to me, you know. And yes, they need a top range shortstop, but they're not looking in that range. They're looking at Simmons, and then they're looking at Falefa. You know, if Falefa was that great, I'm sorry, the Rangers wouldn't need to pay $300 million for his replacement. Felifa reminds me of Gio Urshela. He's an excellent defensive player that can play third and short. But do you need to add another similar Gio Urshela type?
You can also catch. You can also play
there
catch.
you go. There you go. He's better than Gary Sanchez. But do you know what I'm saying? I'm just not sure entirely what the narrative is, and I'm not entirely sure what the strategy is. And at the moment, the Yankees are getting their lunch handed to them by the Mets.
So here's a question I propose to you guys, and I don't know the answer to this. What if the Yankees' big splash is a third baseman, and they're thinking in that direction, and we're not?
I think if they position themselves right, and the can Urshela play shortstop? Yeah. Is he going to be able to do it for an entire year as opposed to just filling in on to give somebody a day of rest? That's a big question mark that the Yankees have to be very really evaluate what they want to do. But
I think Urshela gets traded.
I think so too. I've been saying that for a while. I think that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that they're signing a shortstop. I don't know which one, if it's one of the top guys left. I've come around to the idea of signing Story, but now Buster Olney's saying that he may even be out of our price range. So, again, we don't know what their plan is. But if they get Simmons or if they trade for Falefa, who can play all over the place, then they're clearly going in the route of we need to improve this infield defensively. So they could sign Simmons, they could trade for Falefa, they could re-sign Rizzo, and that might be enough to them. It's not enough to me. They still have other areas of need. I don't want because right now our infield is Luke Voit, LeMahieu, Urshela, Torres in some order, and that's not going to win you anything.
Mm-hmm.
Your outfield is Aaron Hicks in center field. That's he's going to get hurt within the first month. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. They have areas that they have to address, and they have not done anything yet. We've made 2 moves so far. That's re-signing Joely Rodriguez, and we just released Chris Gittins. So we have an open spot on the 40-man. What are they going to do with it? Is a trade coming for, Falefa, or are they making another move that we don't know about? Is Olsen really on the table? We do talk about a lot when Cashman's silent, then something is happening, but it's like, do something. So because the lockout is coming tomorrow, can you make a move, please, so we can just have something to talk about, because we're about to have a lockout for a good 2 months.
So I'm glad you brought up Aaron Hicks, because one of my main points I've been saying for the past few weeks is that the Yankees need a center fielder, and nobody's talking about this for some reason.
Yes, that's my priority.
Yeah, I've been saying this like a while. I'm like, no one's talking about the Yankees need a center fielder. You know who the perfect guy is to trade for? He's in Arizona, Ketel Marte. Maybe it's pronounced Ketel. That dude not only is a really good infielder, that dude's a center fielder by trade. He's a switch hitter. You can stick this dude everywhere. He's everything that the Yankees need. Now, if I'm Cashman, that's the dude you're trying to trade for. It's not like the Diamondbacks are going to win anything anytime soon. So when I sit there and be like, oh, why haven't we traded for a bunch of other people? It's like, I can't help but wonder, is Ketel or Ketel Marte in those cards? I feel like they have to be. The outfielder who I'd love to get is the guy from Japan who just got posted, Seiya Suzuki. Have you guys read this dude's baseball card, by the way?
He's got
fill us in. Fill me in. What do you?
The dude is an on-base machine.
Okay.
The dude is absolutely something that the Yankees absolutely need. He's an athletic center fielder. I think he won the Japan version of the Gold Glove a couple years in a row.
Okay.
That's a dude we can use in center field. And I can't help but wonder if I think ultimately the big splash is going to come not at shortstop. Instead, they're going to get an improvement at shortstop of someone who we're not going to like, because they're going to allocate the resources, I think, to third base and to center field. That's just my prediction. We also have to ask ourselves this: is what do the Yankees think baseball is going to look like post CBA? negotiations. I think that has a lot to do with it too. Because the Mets are in. Keep in mind, I don't care if the Mets get Scherzer. I really don't. Good for them. And the reason why I'm not like wound up about that is because at no point did I ever consider the Yankees would ever go after Max Scherzer ever. I did not consider that a loss for us. I actually consider. I'll even go as far as say that's a win for us. Wanna know why? Because he's out of the American League, so I'm happy with that. He's kept out of the American League. So as long as I don't have to face this guy. I'll face the dude maybe once, maybe twice a year. And it makes sense for the Mets again because DeGrom just had his arm issues from last year, which I hope to God for his sake don't want to be anything. They just lost Scherzer. They don't have a farm system where they could trade for anybody. The Mets are in a unique position to make that payday that the Yankees are not right now. And I'm okay with that. So I was never wound up with that. We do know that they offered Semien, was it 6 years? And they wouldn't go the 7th. So we know they're looking. We know they're doing something. We just don't know what that is. But let me throw that question to you guys. Like, what do you think that the Yankees think the post-CBA world is going to look like? Because I feel like that has to do with that determines their timing with decisions.
I think it's going to be. I think one of the main focuses in the CBA is going to be the arbitration years. I think it's going to be a very strong talking point on both sides of the table. I think the players are getting frustrated about the manipulated service time, reaching free agency later in, at the, when they're just at the tail end of their prime years, where teams want to stay younger. So they're, they don't want free agents to be all in their 30s. And so I think that's going to be a big talking point. What it's going to look like after everything is done, I think that I think you're going to see that there's going to be a tighter financial stronghold on the game itself. I think you're going to see teams have more where on the books there's more of a structured payroll type of situation. You have I think there's going to be as much as it's only been talked about in small circles. I really think you're going to see a salary floor as well for teams that are not spending money. I think that's something that really needs to come into play.
Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen this CBA though?
I think the motion is going to be put in play to bring that into a possibility. I really do.
I think you're right about the arbitration thing. The arbitration thing makes a lot of sense because if it goes by the proposed thing, which is Fangraph's WAR, then how much are they going to be paying Aaron Judge this year? Just based off of WAR, he should get like 20-something million. How much is Joey Gallo going to get in arbitration? How much is Gleyber Torres? They've got to factor all that in now. So I think they are waiting for the CBA to make some moves because if nothing happens today, let's say Correa and Story are still free agents going into the CBA, they're probably not going to sign during these negotiations. So they could still be out there and the Yankees could have a better idea of what their payroll is going to be post CBA. That could be their plan. We might see a small move here and there, like a trade for a more utility role player. I do love the idea of getting Marte on this team. I think he's perfect. However, will they give up the prospect capital? Because they're very protective of their big guys. A lot of people say they gave up a lot for Gallo. When you think about it, they didn't. They did not give up.
I don't know. It's like 5 prospects in the top 20 or whatever.
Yeah, but none of those
more than
guys
they needed to.
They were all Rule 5 guys. Most of them were. They were moves that almost had to be made. You're not going to protect all those players. That all those trades they made last year, a lot of Rule 5 guys, but they protected their big prospects that they do not want to move on from. So, to me, if they're going to do anything right now, it's going to be wait for the CBA and make a signing based off of what the arbitration process looks like. Now, will that go into effect though this year? They can come to an agreement and say, okay, well, starting next off season, arbitration is going to go this way. We don't know what's going to come out of the CBA, which is the upsetting part because they had some talks yesterday, I think, and Jeff Passan said
Well, yeah,
There's-
I've got it here. I've got the article
Yeah.
here. So Jeff Basson says here, news from Jess Rogers, ESPN. In a proposed playoff expansion, there would be 14 teams. Division winners would choose their opponents in a 3-game wildcard round, and the best record in the league would get a bye into the division series. So that's what's been proposed.
Hate
Yeah. So what do you think of that?
I don't think watering down, or expanding. I don't think expanding the playoffs is really going to help the game right now. I actually like the way that it's structured. I think it's fine the way it is. Stop tweaking everything. They're grasping at straws now for, the headlines. And they want that playoff money. I get it. Everybody's in this to make money, but don't jeopardize the quality of your sport to make a buck. That's where it could backfire.
I like expanded playoffs provided there's expansion MLB. Meaning like we should not expand the
More
playoffs
teams.
until we add a couple more teams. So this way it's still equally as difficult to get in the playoffs, even though and you could spread the wealth. So it kind of you could have your cake and eat it too. I think we should wait for more teams for that. So wait, let's backtrack a little bit. Could it be that I'll be hopelessly optimistic? Could it be the reluctance to spend money indicates that they are in fact going to extend Aaron Judge?
No, we know that we know that they're going to do that, but why does that have to be one or the other? Why can't the Yankees address the other needs, and why are they only allocating the funds for Aaron Judge? We are talking about the most successful franchise in world sports.
Yeah.
The most richest organization in the world, along with like Manchester United. I mean, we're talking in terms of American franchises, the premier, along with the Dallas Cowboys. How is it that under Hal Steinbrenner that we're operating in this budget where we're like, well, we only have the funds allocated to Aaron Judge. We can't do anything else. I mean, we spent the whole last year trading certain contracts in order to take on contracts and then having to give extra salary in order for them to pay the contracts in order for us to stay under a luxury tax that has been preset by Hal Steinbrenner. This is not MLB telling us that we have to stop at 205 million. It was Hal Steinbrenner. So it's Hal Steinbrenner really, which is in control of this. So that's why there's no reason to be hopelessly optimistic. I'm afraid this is actually very concerning. He is not really bothered about the Mets basically running New York now in terms of salary. They're going to have far bigger salary than the Yankees, which is pretty embarrassing, really, since we're such a successful, wonderful, and rich franchise. Why are we operating under these self-imposed budgets, which there's actually no need to? That's a real concern.
So here's the thing. How much are we expecting Aaron Judge to make? If we give him an extension, like, well, what do we think it winds up being?
I think you got to go at least 8 years.
Yeah.
He's going to get a lot. You got to look at what some of these free agents are getting right now.
Which is stellar what they're making. I was not expecting after somebody to get thrown out. Do we all agree that like 10 years, 325 for Corey Seager? We are all very glad we're not paying that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not happy that we don't have Corey Seager. I'm happy I'm not paying that. So let's assume, is this fair for Judge? I don't know. I'm sorry, is that 8 years, 300?
I think he would get like between 300 and 350 in that 8-year period.
So if we give Judge 8 years, 300. Again, just throwing that out there for anyone listening. That means we have Cole making 324, Stanton making 325, and Judge making 300. So now you got $900 million just to 3 players.
That's crazy.
But Aaron Judge is 29. I cannot see us giving him an 8-year deal, especially with his injury history. That would be malfeasance. I wouldn't go any higher than 5.
But then I think ideally, yes, provided both parties can agree with that, I'm going to 100% agree with you. But then we wind up in the loop that we're in right now of, well, you're the Yankees, you couldn't just give him the extra year just to make him happy to keep here. You know what I mean? so that we find ourselves in a loop with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big conflict of all Yankee fandom is the loop between, oh, how's not spending enough? Which I don't think the problem is not spending enough. I think the problem is allocating how much you're spending, if that makes sense, or at least not spending it wisely enough. And I think that there's a difference because you get two conflicting halves of Yankee fandom all the time. Is they say, Yankees need to go out and spend a lot of money because the Yankees do what you want. Okay, here's a buttload of money to Giancarlo Stanton. And then it turns into, well, why'd you get that much of Giancarlo Stanton? That was stupid. Like, well, what do you want? And I was talking about the Yankees.
But that was a trade, and also the Marlins ate into a percentage of that contract. So it was actually we're only paying something like 20-odd million, which is actually very, very reasonable for Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, we really are. And people still complain about it, which is nuts.
Well, I know it's crazy, but no, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But I think
you see what I mean? It's like, well, where's that? I don't know what that balance is. I'm openly saying I do not know what the balance is.
I completely understand. I just don't think the two things need to be mutually exclusive. I think that there's an element of truths in both of what you were saying.
Sure.
He has allocated. I personally think you can win a championship, no problem, as a Yankee with a $200 million payroll. Hal Steinbrenner is not wrong about that. It's how you allocate the funds. So you're right about that. How they spend, and also how they develop. But the problem is the Yankees haven't been developing well. In fact, the value in a lot of the guys we're developing is shooting right down once they reach the major league level. You know, there's a huge problem there. So that's a Brian Cashman issue. That's not a Hal Steinbrenner issue. You know, yes, he's given them. You know, Brian Cashman basically told Hal Steinbrenner that Garrett Cole was going to be the white whale. That was the missing piece for us to win a title. We've never been farther away, and it's nothing to do with Garrett Cole because he's been Cy Young caliber. So also that's also to do with the fact that Hal Steinbrenner hasn't allocated. Brian Cashman hasn't allocated the funds correctly. However, we are in this hole now where there's about 6 positions that we really need to be addressing, right? And Hal Steinbrenner isn't interested in adding significant years on contracts and stuff, and that's on him because we really need to be addressing these problems if you want to fix what's up. Because remember, the Yankee narrative was this is not an Aaron Boone problem. This is a players problem. Okay, so get me better players. But the Yankees aren't interested in getting better players because they've got some sort of self-imposed budget. I mean, if you look at our spends per year in terms of what we're bringing in terms of revenue, we bring in like I believe in like 2019 we brought in how much? $700 million in revenue, and how much of that was allocated in payroll? About 35%. So I'm telling you, this is a two-pronged sword, really, two-edged sword. I'm telling you, we're not spending nearly what we bring in revenue, and that's on Hal. But Brian isn't also using what he has available to him correctly.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, we're going to have a lot of contracts come off the books after this year too. So they could easily afford to pay Judge and pay a guy like Story, and the payroll's still going to drop because Aroldis Chapman's making like $19 million this year. That's coming off the books.
Who should be traded, by the way?
Yeah, I wish that would happen, but if he's waiving that no trade clause, that's the big question. Zach Britton's also more than likely off the books coming off after this year. A lot of guys' contracts are going to come off, and if they move certain players like Voit and Urshela, they're not going to worry about those contracts. They could easily afford and still have a significantly lower payroll, than people think if they pay some of these guys, and they pay Aaron Judge the big money. They can still do it. They're still the Yankees, and people are going to show up to the games if they see that this team is putting the effort in to putting a championship caliber team. If you go into next year with the team we have right now with some small improvements, that's not an effort to me. That's telling me we're okay.
But the Yankees keep adding to their problems. They still haven't tendered Voit. So if he ends up being non-tendered by the end of the day, we don't have a first baseman. Our first baseman is LeMahieu. So now you created, now you even deepened the hole that you're in. Now you have to go not only search for, a center fielder for when Hicks goes down, because he will. We have to address the shortstop position. You need to upgrade the catcher, and now we knew we needed a first baseman, but now you might end up with no first baseman because you already cut Gittins. So here it is. The Yankees just keep digging themselves this hole, and not to be keep repeating myself, but with the CBA, the window to get business handled is very small this year, and they have to really be careful. If they don't get anything done, they better go on a fire. They got to go on fire once baseball business resumes. Because to my understanding is while the CBA is negotiated, there's no business being made at all. You can't talk to anybody. And so pretty much baseball is going to shut down, and the Yankees are going to be stuck trying to scramble, and teams are going to love it if the Yankees have to scramble for all these needs, because they can ask for anything and they could turn any offer down and really have the Yankees handcuffed.
Yeah.
I was looking at the really quick. I was looking at the standings from the National League East the past few years, and then I want you to think about this. We have complained every year. And I promise I'll bring us back around the Yankees. We have complained. Well, not really complained. It's been frequently discussed that the National League East has supposedly underachieving, and yet the National League East won 2 of the last 3 World Series. I want you to actually think about this. The Braves won the World Series this year after treading water in their division and only winning 88 games this year. The Nationals won after they won the wild card game. And then that was in 2019. You can't help but look at that and be like, that's the reason why they think the playoffs are a crapshoot. I'm not saying it's correct, but you can't help but look at that and be like,
no, it's a respectful narrative.
Yeah. And that's why I used to poo-poo the whole, I was like, well, what do you mean the playoffs are a crapshoot? It can't be. When you look at it, it's like, how much money do the Dodgers spend in? The Dodgers only have, while they've been to 3 World Series, they only won 1 of them
in a short year.
Yeah.
At least they're getting there, bro. At least they're getting there.
They're true. Oh yeah, but believe me, I know that's true. That's true. But what I think that the Yankees are putting an awful lot of stock into, eventually it'll just fall in our hands, because it fell into the Braves' hands, it fell into the Nationals' hands, it finally fell in the Dodgers' hands. I think that they're putting a lot of reliance into, if you keep flipping a coin, eventually you'll land on heads. And I don't love this strategy. Love this strategy. But yeah.
It's a very dangerous game to be playing, because look, the Yankees team right now, is it a good team? Yeah, of course. It's good enough to probably make a wild card spot, especially if there's an expanded playoffs. They're guaranteed to make the playoffs. And then if you're playing with 14 goddamn teams in the playoffs, then anything's possible. But is this team equipped to win a World Series? No, because they would have. They would have by now. They would have been able to get by Boston. They would have been able to get by Tampa, whoever it was, to get to a championship if they were good enough. They're not good enough right now. The players that would take us to that next level have all been on the board so far this free agency and in the trade market. And they have yet to do anything about that. That's the issue that I'm having here. And they have the funds. They got under the luxury tax for a reason, right? Mission accomplished. It's exactly what Brian Cashman said. Yep. We're not doing anything yet. So I've been very, very patient with this offseason. But the fact that our only moves have been trading Tyler Wade and signing Joely Rodriguez back, that's nothing to me. You got to make something happen. Even if it's re-signing Rizzo today and bringing in Trevor Story, that makes your team better than what you were yesterday. But they haven't done anything. Why are you willing to give a guy who hasn't pitched in 2 years $25 million, but you're not willing to give, 30 or maybe even like $27 million to Story for a 4-year contract? This way, you're still able to get those guys like either Volpe or Peraza, whoever they feel is the most major league ready guy up. You can keep Story for 4 years, put him in center field if you want to. They talked about trading for him and doing that last year. So the options are there.
Question, Rob. Why are the Yankees, if the Yankees are so worried about years, why are they not putting in opt-outs, during the contract if they're so obsessed with years? You know what I mean? Because we've seen that in a bunch of contracts. We've seen that a bunch of Max Scherzer. There's an opt-out after a second. So if the Yankees are so worried about adding on 5 or 6, 7 years, why don't they put in an opt-out after fucking 4? Excuse me. I don't understand what this narrative is. I think the Yankees are saying one thing and doing precisely the opposite. That's what I'm more concerned about. It just seems to be that whatever they tell us is just lip service. Brian Cashman said, mission accomplished, getting under the luxury tax. But Hal Steinbrenner said, no, there was never any luxury tax budget. That's nonsense. That was a lie. Because Hal Steinbrenner Brian Cashman just told him that there was a budget, mission accomplished. Okay. And now he's like, there's now maneuverability, but there clearly isn't maneuverability. We're going right after the top shortstops, and we're not. So what is going on here? I think a lot of what they were saying is to get the fans off their back in order to sell season tickets, in order for them to go back and continue to do exactly what they wanted to do in the first place. Bring back Aaron Boone and roll back what they already have. I think that they don't want to admit to mistakes. I think they just want to tread water. That's what I believe. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
No, I agree. I think they're fine with. It seems like, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it seems like they're okay with just getting there, and because they know people are going to buy tickets. Like, even though the Yankees were not a great team last year, people still showed up. And this is during a pandemic. People are still going to the games, and they're going to keep going to the games. That's just how it is until people, and no one's going to actually do it. Everyone's like, oh, don't go to the stadium. They're going to go. People are going to go. It's just it happens every year. People went during the 2013 season. So it's not like people are not going to go to Yankee Stadium to watch the team play. They're going to make money. And Hal's a businessman. And he's in it for the money. Now, what he fails to realize is winning a championship brings you even more money. So if you allocate those funds to bringing in a guy like Correa or Story and bringing in players that help you win, then people are going to continue to show up. They're going to buy the gear. They're going to buy the buckets of chicken. They're going to buy that milkshake at the stadium, and you're going to keep making money. It's going to be like an endless ATM machine, and it still is for him right now, but it's going to be even more. He did it once, and we got a championship out of it back in 2009, and then they just completely screwed the team up from that point on. They started trading away key players and letting guys go, and it's been like that since 2009. We have been a poorly run organization since that World Series.
Do you think Steve Cohen's worried about their luxury tax? Is he? Heck. He's not worried about it because he has enough money in the bank. He ain't worried. And the Yankees shouldn't be worried either. They're the richest club in sports. So, they can easily afford, and it wouldn't even necessarily blow up our payroll anyway, adding a $27 million contract.
I think the worry from the luxury tax isn't the money you're going to lose; it's the draft pick, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's
a
because you lose
lot
the
of people
draft
don't
picks.
take that into account. But the thing is, like for me with the luxury tax, why am I going to pay a luxury tax that's got to go into with the shared revenue for teams that aren't putting money into their team anyway? I'm like, why am I giving you my money to put in your pocket? I'd rather keep it in mine. That's also the business part of it.
Yeah.
Hal voted against increasing the luxury tax threshold. There's not enough being said about that. He wanted to lower it to keep it lower than it already is. That tells you something about his mindset.
Guys.
Guy's a lunatic. Tells me he's a lunatic.
This team is just I don't know where they're gonna go. I don't know where the CBA negotiations are gonna go. But one thing I do know is hopefully something, some news trickles out as the process goes along. So at least we'll have something to talk about. But
Well, hey, we mentioned in yesterday's podcast about the catcher situation. We were really interested in Stallings, and he ended up going for a couple of relievers. So again, that shows that I'm not quite sure what our plan is, because apparently
that's why I don't
that
even
was
want
a
to
very
mention any
strong
players, because
rumor.
every player we mentioned yesterday got signed or traded. So I don't want to jinx anything now.
The only one that
It was a very strong rumor. It was basically, that was something the Yankees were interested in. How did he end up going for a couple of relievers? Why were the Yankees not interested in upping that offer? I don't understand.
I
Speaking of
guess
catchers, what level in the minors is Austin Wells in?
he's in like high A ball or something like that.
Because like he shows up to spring training, usually hits well in spring training, and then we never hear from the guy.
He's playing really well in winter ball right now. I think he's probably going to be another spring training guy this year, and he is eventually going to make that leap to AA, AAA. He might be ready sooner than later, but everything they say about him is he's a left-handed Gary Sanchez. He's good at the plate, but not very good behind the plate. Most people see him as a first baseman, so if they're banking on that, that's a full. The better option would have been Donnie Sands, and they traded him. So well, there you go.
Scott, prediction. Who do we bring in? Are we going to sign a Trevor Story, or are we going to bring in Simmons or a Falefa?
I think it's going to be Simmons, and the reason why I think the big acquisition is not going to be the shortstop. I think it's going to wind up being third base.
Which one do you have? Chris Bryant?
Chris Bryant, that'd be a hell of a fit. Especially him with Rizzo. Those two would have an absolute party together. Although something scares me about bringing in the entire Cubs team that stopped working. Here's what I would do. I say there's two people and there's three guys in Oakland who we would love to have. Four, actually. I think we can wind up with two of them. If you're Cashman, how are you not trying to get both Olson and Matt Chapman? Or Olson and Minaya.
Olson
and Laureano. If it weren't for the PEDs things, I was saying last year, can we please trade for Laureano? First of all, the dude has the best nickname in baseball, Laser Ramon. That's the best nickname in baseball. This dude is a absolute wizard in the outfield. Our answers are in Oakland. It could be a pick two.
Is.
And I think that it's going to come in the form of a pick two from Oakland. I think Matt Olson is going to be one of them. And I think the other is going to be either Ramon, who I think still has time left on his PED suspension. I could be wrong on that. So I think it'll be the least likely one, but I think it'll be Matt Chapman or Sean Manaea. Don't be surprised if one of those two winds up coming over here with Matt Olson. And then all of a sudden, you do that with Andrelton Simmons. All of a sudden, we all sit here and be like, now I get it.
Well, what if they don't get Olson and they trade for a guy like Manaea and Murphy and they re-sign Rizzo? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure, why not? I like Anthony Rizzo. I really do. And for a lot of reasons. One, he's my kind of hitter. He slaps the ball all around the field. Second, he's a phenomenal defensive first base, which is something we have not had since Mark Teixeira. So that would be great. I am not opposed to Anthony Rizzo. I'm scared of Anthony Rizzo money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love Rizzo.
Yeah.
He might want a big deal. He turned down $75 million, so it's possible that Olson would be the smarter option. I just don't know if they want to trade away those prospects that would take to get him. That's why I think if you go lesser.
What it would take. I don't know what it would take. I still think the Yankees should be parting this year. We should be parting ways with Luke Voigt and Gio Urshela, because they still have value, and I do not think they are projected upwards anymore. I think we've seen the best for them. I think they both deserve a wholehearted salute and thank you for your service. I think we've seen the best of them. Get rid of them now before it's too late. What
about your thoughts on Gleyber Torres?
You can't do anything with him because who the heck wants him at this point? That's the problem. Seriously, like if you told me we could sign like Gleyber and Voigt to Oakland for like Matt Chapman and like Manaea, I'll give me the paper. I'll sign it for you. I'll forge the signature. I don't care. Like at this point, I never my Mets partner in crime, Billy, he says like, he goes, you can't give up on Torres yet. I said, here's the thing now. At this point, you're either part of the solution or you're out of here. And he's not part of the solution. And I wish he was. He's not anymore. I don't know what the heck happened to him. But yeah, but to answer your question, sure, I think my prediction is the answer comes from Oakland.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I think we've all been saying that as a podcast.
Yeah.
Oakland's been the focal point of the discussions when it comes to where the team could improve.
Yeah.
But like Rob said, it all depends on the cost. And if
Mhm.
the Yankees don't do something, they don't work smart, these teams are going to handcuff the Yankees with something fierce, and it could all backfire. We could really be in a tough spot next year.
Yeah. And the optimism that I'm left with is we're not spending money quickly because they're looking for trading. They're not looking for free agent signings.
Yeah, and
I
I
agree with
think the
that.
majority of the fan base is more in favor of working the trade market than the free agent market.
Yeah.
I'd be
No.
okay with that if they made a trade to get Falefa, and then they go to Oakland and get a pitcher and Murphy. They get Manaea or Bassett, and they get Murphy. I don't think we're getting Olsen because the cost would be apparently the asking point right now is just astronomical for Olsen. Rightfully so, he's a great player. But if they turned around and re-signed Rizzo, our team is better with those 3 moves alone that we made. And then you move Urshela, you get some prospect value back, and you move Voit, you get some prospect value back. For him, won't be much, but you get something to replenish that system. I've said it before, the Yankees are very good at the international market. We're about to get that Roderick Arias guy he's like the shortstop version of Dominguez, according to people. So there's another shortstop that we're going to be adding to our list of 18 that we have right now. So they have to move somebody. So if you can move Peraza and other pieces to get Murphy, Manaea, and maybe even Chapman in that deal, and you leave Olsen to go elsewhere and you re-sign Rizzo, then the team is better. You're adding lefty balance, you're adding defense, and you're making your team better.
And don't rule out a 3-way trade. Just because we don't have anything to give Oakland doesn't mean that we don't have something to give someone else who can give something to Oakland. Can't rule that out.
That's true.
Yeah. That's what I think it all boils down to. I think, and here's what works for our advantages. For the CBA is we talk a lot about like players are. I think the universal expectation is teams are going to wind up spending more money on players by the end of the CBA, or at least that will be set up for that to happen. And Oakland is their biggest enemy is money.
Yep.
So is there a way you could play like 4D chess here and like essentially run out the clock and force Oakland to make a move because now they're going to have to start dropping dollars and they're really going to be looking to penny pinch because then they're being in trouble. They're already in trouble when you think about it right now. They already let go of their center fielder, Marte.
Yeah.
Simeon's been obviously gone for a year. The Texas Rangers just said, F this, we're kicking into high gear. The Seattle Mariners finally remembered that they existed. So you got Oakland on this slight downward curve while all of Oakland's competitors are now going upwards. And the Astros obviously aren't going anywhere, though I wish they would. Is the plan to wait out Oakland, essentially armbar them into submission, be like, cool, you guys want to save money, you guys are toast, so you might as well just give us what we want. Can't help but wonder if that's the thing, because Cashman has a way of trading for what he wants and not spending a lot. That's something you gotta give Cashman. He has a way. I don't know if it's hypnosis. I don't know if it's a voodoo doll, but he has a way.
Well, I mean,
whatever it is, it works.
Well, he has to win every trade. That's the thing. I mean, I've mentioned it. If you don't know if you've read Kevin Kernan's article on Ball 9, where he said that a lot of GMs, some of them just don't really like working with Brian Cashman because he's obsessed with winning every single trade, and so it's a very fixed market in terms of who he trades with, which tends to be Oakland, tends to be Pittsburgh, and a couple of others, Texas as well. Oakland are a difficult team to negotiate with, though, because they're very similar to Tampa Bay, in which they've been very, very successful with a zero budget, and that's because they're very, very smart. they scout themselves better than anybody can scout them, and they know exactly the right price for everything. So I mean, you're talking Brian Cashman's excellent at negotiating. That's one of his strengths.
Mhm.
And so when the two of them butting heads, I mean, that's going to be that's going to be a heck of a negotiation, because Cashman has to win every trade, and Oakland are probably playing 4D chess. They often do. Tampa Bay do, and they make the Yankees look stupid with the way that they run their organization. With less payroll than what we're paying Garrett Cole.
And Oakland's trying to build a new ballpark. So who's to say that they're not? Remember, Oakland right now. I would think this is just my prediction. Oakland right now they're not worried about winning. They are worried about winning when the new ballpark opens. And I do not believe they're going to wind up moving to Vegas. I think that's all smoke and mirrors. I think that's just going to be an elongated way just to get a new ballpark in Oakland for a lot of different reasons. But
I agree with that.
If you're Oakland, you're looking at to get better to line up with the opening of the new ballpark, which could be like, I don't know, realistically, like 5 years away. Are they going to have Matt Olson in 5 years? Is Matt Chapman? Are they really going to have Matt Chapman there in 5 years? Knowing them, I don't believe that. I guess I think there's a lot of different arms that you can kind of twist.
Well, they're all available.
Yeah,
they are all available. It's just at what price,
Mhm.
and that's the question.
That is the big question. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of questions going into through the next few 13 hours until it's shut down. Right. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Scott, is your Mets host happy right now with all the Mets moves?
Yeah, he's pretty happy. He's pretty
I
happy.
thought so.
Yeah, he's happy, and I'm happy for him. Like, he hasn't had a lot to smile about with the Mets for a very long time. It's like, you know what? You guys have this one. That's why I never get mad at the Mets. I really don't.
No. They've had such a great offseason.
Yeah,
such
I know.
a good offseason.
I know. It's a little abrupt. Saying, you know what? You guys do you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Have fun.
They got two guys that I've always wanted on the Yankees, and that's Max Scherzer and Marte. Yeah. Always wanted Marte. Yeah. I think he's the ideal fit for the Yankees. So, credit to the Mets. They're just putting the money where their mouth is.
Yeah. And they needed to. That was a big thing. They're in a spot where they needed to do it, and they did. So it's like, have yourself a field day, guys.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up for today's episode. And what I want to do is hope that in the next 13 hours, the Yankees, like we asked yesterday, just please do something today. Don't wait until the last minute. And the one question that we're going to leave off with and start with tomorrow is with the December 1st day where we had a big, a lot of activity over the last, 4 days. Does a deadline, would that benefit baseball overall to have a deadline? So we'll discuss that into more detail tomorrow. Just remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Scott, thank you for joining us. Check out his channel, Before the Pitch. And we will talk to you tomorrow, where your pinstripes your pride and play hard.
Thanks, Scott.